Hello, everybody. I spent this Sunday, I just watched an hour and a half of Windsor church session, and it was asked of me by a longtime follower all the way from Windsor, Ontario, and he's been with me a long time. And he asked me, him and his wife are in this church, and of course, they don't want me to disclose their name, but they want me to take this on as they were there today listening to the service, and they were greatly disturbed. And again, longtime follower of mine, and I'm not going to make this about religion, but I'm going to give the historical truth of religion. And I put a Dear Steve, the pastor in that church, and I had this very hard time right across Canada, and I think I would like to see more of American evangelism and see how pastors operate there, how they speak of Jesus, and how they narrate the Bible and historical teachings when they grab specific texts from specific writers of the Bible that we're led to believe anyway, because it's very hard. The Bible has been written many times, revised and rewritten. And if you think it was done by regular folks studying the Bible, professionals of the Bible, you'd be sadly mistaken. We had the Dark Ages where the Bible was burned along with many other books, and there are still original texts in Hebrew and original teachings, and we've seen constructs from that. We've seen all kinds of people take what they believe the text to mean, not as they're literally written. And then there's been changes to how they've been written. King James was the first out of the Dark Age to rewrite the Bible. And I'm going to make a reference to the quote that was used by Timothy before I get into the bread and butter of what we're going to talk about, and introduce my own clause from Timothy, how he explains the savage and who is referred to as the savage. And this too is by Timothy, historical text clearly missed by kings rewriting the Bible, so to speak. It's a serious contradiction. And it says it's actually the kings and those in the glory of chasing all the wealth and pushing the citizens down that are the real savages. They're the real savages because they're not doing it in the name of God or following anything that's of God. You can't find a single teaching or story of Jesus where he himself portrays himself or ever answers himself as the King of Kings. That all came after. Jesus never wore any glorious robes or golds of crown or spoke of a time of ascending the earth or entering the spirit world, whatever you want to call it, or even coming back alive to walk the earth in robes of wealth and glories of golden crowns. You'll never find a single story of Jesus ever saying that, portraying that, or leading that kind of example. It's all contrary. The life of Jesus. Again, you can't find any real historical texts to dispute that. So the idea of us or any Christian religion narrating Jesus as King of Kings is wrong. It's wrong, and no literal texts ever in conjunction with Jesus of the time or stories of Jesus of the time to portray that ever. In fact, there's a mass amount of evidence to the absolute contrary. And any academic institution, Christian-based society can try to bring that forward. I'm still waiting. It's been many years and nobody's been able to contradict that absolute truth. I say absolute truth because those are the historical texts, and you have to bring something forward to change that reality. And when we start looking at Bibles rewritten by kings and versions of people talking about Jesus many thousands of years after he has left this earth, I'm sorry, you weren't there. It's hearsay or propaganda, one of the two. And I don't make this to make fun of people or to minimize people or what they're trying to express, but there's a lot. And using Bible scripture to define Canadians as anything about citizens, the Dominion of Canada as citizens, there is absolutely no historical evidence or truth from the Dominion of Canada through the Constitutional Acts of Canada 1867 all the way through to 1982 and beyond, because folks, there are amendment procedures that have gone all the way past 2011 and just in the recent couple of years with just provinces alone through the federal system, and those are amendments to those constitutional acts. They're called consolidated because they just keep going. It grows as changes are made in this country. And I'm going to say this again. There has been no change at all in the entirety of Canada from 1867 to post 1982, meaning Canada 1867 all the way to 2023, that says anything other than that all Canadians are subjects or savages unless you've ascended to first class. There is the citizen. And if you ever want to know what is a subject of Canada, please go grab the Citizenship Act of Canada. Go read it. And clearly there you will see that if you were some kind of citizen from a country that defined you that way before you swore the oath, I'm sorry to tell you, you are a subject. In all the teachings of the Bible, clearly Old Testament through New Testament, if you are a subject under a king, you are not defined as a citizen. I'm sorry, but anyone narrating that is just propagating the lies of kings of old, King James and all those before him that played around, and all those after, as the New Testament rewritten, republished with 30,000 changes from the historical texts, 30,000 changes to change narratives, to change definitions, to change wording to meet the English narrative of today, specifically for the crown power. And it's still imperfect. Why is it imperfect? Because it was done by men, not by God or the Son of God in the time of the Son of God, by those around him. They've been changed to suit a church under the state. When we look at 1982, clearly before the 1982 amendment, and then right after the 1982 amendment, and by the end of the Consolidated Constitutional Acts, the very last page, second paragraph, it clearly reminds you, you are all subjects, if not under the Indian Act, where you're narrated as the savage. That isn't the definition of savage according to Timothy. So I encourage all Christians who follow these kinds of teachings, and pastors alike, I'm not attacking you, go read Timothy 6, 2-5. I put it in this title. Is that wrong too? One of them is correct and one usage is correct. I believe Timothy's was missed by an imperfect rewrite by imperfect men who were under state, church under state. We are not citizens in this country. There is no definition for any second, third class, or defined savage people that gives you the power of a citizen in this country. First class divine citizens are listed. And we talk about 1982 and on the principles of supremacy of God and rule of law. Who is God? Who is God when they say the supremacy of God? When you also tie it to the rule of law. Because if you believe that, then rule of law will put church under state, and God will be your defined first-class citizenry. There was talk in there of Mary Simon and praying for Mary Simon. I hope it's praying for Mary Simon, because under definition, that is a God. That is a God, not my God. I do believe in the teachings of Jesus. That's just me. That's just me. But I take it as it really is, not as state actors immortalizing themselves wish us to have it. I urge the Christian Academy, as I'm in right now with the highest religious Christian academy in the United States, debating all these things. I've been doing it for many weeks, back and forth, back and forth. Will I win it? I don't know. Do people like these truths? Probably not. Again, I'm not attacking Pastor Steve, but you asked for people to pray for all these other individuals. Well, people are praying for you too, sir. And people in your congregation fearful of backlash and offending you and reaction from that community so far off in Windsor. They've asked me to do it on their behalf. So I give it to you, sir. Not in the idea that I'm ridiculing or slamming you, but in the idea that maybe God will find you and that maybe prayers will be answered for you and that you'll look at these historical truths. 1982, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms isn't worth the paper it's written on. Charters have always been pollutants and always deadly against religious values. Again, what is a king? When did Jesus ever narrate himself as a king? When did he ever dress himself as a king? Where did he ever immortalize himself as a king? He lived in his actions, his deeds, and all of his words were written by those, at least we hope to believe, by those around him to be true. Never once did he refer to him as a king. Never once did he live his life as a king. He preached love, forgiveness, and a path to an everlasting life that we should all aspire to do and be. And how we live our life in this world apparently will open the door to a better one in our passing this time on earth. I hope that people get that message right. I hope that people learn that in this country, you are not a citizen. And when we go back to that rule of law, read the Citizenship Act. Go read it. We are not citizens. We are subjects. And if you believe in any of the Old Testament and the accounts of the Old Testament, you can look at the Jews, the Israelites, and the slavery and the stories of Egypt, what a subject is, and what was so bad about being a subject under divine kings, and what Timothy writes about who the true savage is. Well, that's the kings who immortalize themselves, enrich themselves at the expense of everybody else. They enlist the controls, the power, the sweeping reforms to push the people down. Again, who are not defined in any rule of law as citizens that you'd be led to believe we are. That is not a rule of law. That is definitely not what the church should be preaching, that it's true that we're citizens, because we're clearly not citizens. United States of America, sure, that fits. Should I start watching programs in the United States? Sure, if there's folks out there who have recordings like what I watched today that I can address, I'll do that. Again, I don't do this to be mean or slam religions, but it's perversion, and it continues the church under state methodology of institutionalizing so very, very many people. So I pray for you, Steve, and I pray for your church, and I hope that the Christian Academy that you've all attended as you give your lectures starts to look at things as they really are. Because if we keep not doing that, you're doing a great disservice to the Lord that you believe in and the Christ that you profess to follow. That's all I'm going to say about it. And again, it's not to be mean. It's not to slam people. And I hope those in that congregation who reached out to me, I hope this helps you, and I hope this somewhat answers your prayers, and I hope that these prayers find Steve and the church itself and the community at large very, very well. Thanks, everybody. God bless. Enjoy your day.